I recently saw a comment on a post from Chris Hadfield on the space station. In this comment, the commenter was saying he didn't think that it was sensible that the astronauts had oxygen in the space station without gravity. This is so wrong from so many points of view that I don't know where to begin. I guess I'll begin with the idea that a gas doesn't require gravity to stay within a container. And I'll continue by saying that the person was jumping off from understanding that the Earth has an atmosphere because of gravity, which is a not so unsophisticated idea in geophysics and astronomy, as well as earth science. So it's strange how this person jumped from something so somewhat sophisticated to something so senseless. There was another comment about how the astronauts' necks look thick. Well, they were far enough away from the camera that it probably wasn't obvious that their faces looked thick too, because on orbit we don't have the benefit of 1g gravity such as we have on Earth to balance out the fluids in our bodies. So they rise into the head, and that gives the astronauts a strained look. You can often see the vein in the forehead, and their faces look puffy. This is almost physiological proof that they're in orbit, or at least in microgravity. And there was another comment about how the observer, the spectator, the person watching the video, couldn't believe that the astronauts were not affected by the moon if this observer has to believe that the moon affects the Earth's tides. To which I responded, and these are all in the forms of responses from which I'm bringing this content to you now, that it's true, another not so unsophisticated idea that extends from Kepler's law about gravitation, that all objects in the universe act upon one another, but in varying degrees. So the moon's influencing the Earth's tides is something that has to do with their gravity wells intersecting with one another. More simply put, the moon's gravity affects the Earth's oceans, but why would, or more importantly, what would this observer or spectator on YouTube or Instagram, as it happens to have been, expect to be the effect on people? And why would he expect that the effect would be noticeable? There are many things that take place in our lives, most things, which we don't notice, right? Even if you don't move beyond the exterior of your own body, your autonomic nervous system has many things going on in your body about which you need to think not one iota. Why would one expect to see some change in the astronauts due to the moon's gravity? Would he expect their hair to be moving in the direction of the moon? Probably this is something that would be interesting to study, but what is he really asking is what I want to know. Was he asking why the astronauts weren't pulled to the side of the space station that faced the moon? You're not pulled in any particular direction because of the moon, yet the moon affects the oceans, right? I haven't put together a cumulative understanding of this in order to explain it, but on the face of it, again, it doesn't require great sophistication to say that you shouldn't expect anything noticeable among the astronauts in the station because of the moon. The astronauts in the station experience other effects on their bodies, which requires instrumentation to discover. For example, we've recently discovered that astronauts can suffer embolisms and reverse blood flow due to the microgravity. And Yet another commenter made a point of saying something about the astronauts being in orbit and there not being evidence of this that wouldn't be satisfied without cables and things. I think it was the same person who commented about the apparent thickness of the astronauts' necks. The reason that they're in orbit is they are under the influence of gravity. That's what it was. It was actually the moon commenter saying something about the gravity situation. If they're in zero gravity, why are they not affected by the moon, which affects our tides? Well, they're actually not in zero gravity. The effect is zero gravity, but the astronauts are in microgravity. They're in free fall. And they are in free fall because their forward velocity is in equilibrium with the downward pull of the Earth, or the attraction between the Earth and the space station. And that's what forms the shape of the orbit. They're falling forward at all times. I guess I'll close this by saying that people should spend a little time investigating science instead of attacking it. And they attack it when they get a morsel, like a bit of an unsophisticated idea, or not too non-nuanced or not too unsophisticated an idea, and they run with it instead of trying to understand it a little bit better. As you can see, at several junctures in this video, I've acknowledged that there are things that I don't know about the things about which I know something. And so what I will do afterward, or at some point, or I'll just make a mental note and wait to hear this from Scott Manley or another space influencer or an astronaut online, is I'll learn more about it and then I will understand it. But the last thing I will do is point to some conspiracy theory or come up with some harebrained idea, which in the end is only going to advertise my ignorance. So don't advertise your ignorance. Ask real questions. The comments that were made on the Chris Hadfield video, and that's where all of this originated, at least they're positing their thoughts. That's the one good thing about it. There was one other person who said, oh, this astronaut missed the opportunity to play Space Oddity by David Bowie. This shows how unconnected these people are. Astronaut Chris Hadfield is largely famous, not for his being an astronaut, in the general public that is, but because he played Space Odyssey. And it was so popular that David Bowie, before he died, made a statement that he would eventually have to take the video down, which I thought was kind of impish of him. But artists have problems with their egos, as I can attest. So what's the message here? Pay more attention. Pay more attention if you want to understand something. Don't attack. Investigate. And as Neil deGrasse Tyson and another astronaut whose name escapes me at the moment would say, Anderson, Clay Anderson, keep looking up.